The fierce alien queen's daughter vanished, only to be found curled up with the human guard. The air was tense, filled with whispers of worry and fear. Inside the golden halls, Queen Zarethi paced back and forth. She was known across the galaxy as fierce and merciless, a ruler who demanded respect and obedience from all. Her daughter, Princess Lyra, was missing. The news had spread like wildfire, and panic now gripped everyone who served in the palace. Zarethi's guards were in a frenzy. Alien soldiers, tall and armored, patrolled the corridors with drawn weapons. Every room was searched, every hallway inspected, yet no trace of the princess was found. The queen's advisors spoke nervously, suggesting kidnappers, rival empires, and even conspiracies within the palace itself. Zarethi ignored their fear, though her jaw tightened with anger. She did not like being powerless. Meanwhile, far from the main corridors and the noise of the search parties, a human guard named Ethan Cole moved quietly. Ethan was unlike most of the alien soldiers in the palace. He was smaller, lean, and calm. His skin was pale by Valkoran standards, his hair a simple brown, his eyes a soft green. He had once been a soldier on Earth, trained in discipline and patience, and that experience made him different. The Queen had hired him months ago because he could remain calm in chaos and follow orders without question. Ethan had been assigned to patrol a corridor near the old Garden Dome, a place few aliens visited. The garden had once been a symbol of peace and beauty, filled with crystal-like trees and glowing plants. Now it was abandoned, with broken glass and wilted flowers scattered on the floor. Even in its decay, it had a strange quiet that made Ethan feel calm. Tonight he felt that quiet more than ever. Something seemed off. He walked slowly, his boots making soft thuds on the polished floor. He noticed the soft flicker of light coming from the garden dome. It was faint, almost invisible, but it was there. Ethan paused, listening. No footsteps, no whispers, just the hum of energy from the power conduits hidden beneath the floor. He moved closer, careful not to make a sound. Inside the dome, the air was cool and smelled faintly of flowers. Broken branches and shattered glass crunched under Ethan's boots. He stopped near the center and froze. There, curled up beside a warm energy conduit, was a small figure. At first, he could not see clearly. Then the dim light revealed her face. It was the Princess Lyra. She looked fragile, far from the proud royal figure he had seen in the halls. Her hair was tangled, her clothes torn from what must have been a hurried escape. She was curled into a ball, hugging her knees, and her eyes were closed. She breathed softly, unaware of the human guard watching her. Ethan felt a strange mix of relief and concern. The princess was safe for now, but she had clearly fled for a reason. He stepped closer, careful not to startle her. "Princess Lyra," he said softly. She stirred but did not wake immediately. Her eyes blinked open slowly, fear and confusion clear in them. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "My name is Ethan Cole," he replied. "I am a guard. I am here to help, not to harm you." Lyra's eyes narrowed. She pulled her knees closer as if to make herself smaller. "You are human," she said, her voice suspicious. "Why are you here?" "I am guarding the palace," Ethan explained. "But I found you first. You are not in danger from me. If you trust me, I can help you." For a moment she studied him, unsure whether to run or stay. Then exhaustion overcame her fear. She leaned back slightly, still wary, and asked quietly, "Why would you help me?" Ethan shrugged, keeping his voice gentle. "Because no one deserves to be afraid in their own home. And because sometimes being brave means protecting someone even when it is dangerous." Lyra looked down, hugging herself tighter. "I could not stay there," she admitted. "My mother, she is strong, fierce, and she expects everything from me." I am not ready," tears welled in her eyes. "I was going to hide, but I did not know where to go." Ethan nodded. He had heard stories of alien royalty and the weight of expectation they carried. "Then you are not alone," he said softly. "I can help you. We can stay hidden until we figure out what to do." She looked at him with uncertain hope. For the first time in days, her fear of running and hiding felt lighter. She took the jacket Ethan offered, wrapping it around her small frame. It was too large for her, but it provided warmth and a sense of security. They spent the next few hours in quiet conversation. Ethan did not push questions, and Lyra did not offer too much information. She spoke in small fragments about the garden she loved as a child, about stars she had seen from the palace windows, and about the pressure of being a princess. Ethan listened, offering small words of reassurance. For the first time, Lyra felt someone understood her without judgment. Outside the dome, alien patrols continued to search the palace. Loud alarms occasionally echoed, and the distant voices of guards calling to each other reminded Ethan and Lyra that danger was close. They remained hidden, moving only when necessary. Ethan's training helped them avoid detection, and Lyra learned quickly how to stay quiet. As night deepened, the glow from the energy conduits bathed the dome in soft light. Lyra rested her head against Ethan's shoulder, feeling safe for the first time in what seemed like an eternity. Ethan remained alert, scanning the broken garden paths and listening for approaching footsteps, but he did not move her. She needed this moment of peace. "Why do you stay calm?" Lyra asked quietly, breaking the silence. "Because panic helps no one," Ethan said with a small smile. "You survive by thinking clearly, not by running blindly, and because I promised to protect you." She nodded slowly, feeling the truth in his words. For the first time, she realized that strength was not only about power or fear. It could also be patience, courage, and loyalty. Humans had a way of showing it that aliens rarely understood. The night passed with few disturbances. Ethan remained watchful, and Lyra slept in the warmth of the jacket. The palace might be in chaos, but in this hidden corner a bond was quietly forming. A human guard and an alien princess, brought together by chance, finding trust in each other where others could only demand obedience. As the first light of Valcora's sun touched the broken glass of the garden, Lyra woke and looked at Ethan. She felt a strange gratitude mixed with hope and fear. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "Now," Ethan replied, "we wait, we hide, and we learn how to be strong together." For the first time, Lyra believed that she could survive without losing herself. And Ethan, ever vigilant, realized that guarding a princess was more than following orders. It was about understanding, patience, and courage in ways that could change the fate of a galaxy. The palace searched on, unaware that the princess they sought so desperately was safe in the hands of a human who could teach her the strength that mattered most. And so, in the quiet of the old garden dome, a story began that would shake the empire and change both their lives. Forever the morning light filled the old garden dome with a soft, golden glow. The broken glass on the floor shimmered like tiny stars, and the wilted plants seemed almost peaceful in the quiet. Princess Lyra sat cross-legged on the floor, the large jacket Ethan had given her still wrapped around her small frame. She stared at the cracks in the glass roof, thinking of the life she had left behind in the palace. It was a life of rules, expectations, and fear. She had run because she could no longer bear the weight of being perfect, the constant eyes of the Empire on her every move. Ethan watched her carefully, making sure she felt safe. He had prepared a small area with blankets and cushions near the warm energy conduit, and he had brought water and a simple meal of fruits and protein cubes from the palace stores. He placed the food gently in front of her. "You should eat," he said softly. "You need strength if you are going to stay hidden." Lyra shook her head, hesitant. "I do not know if I can stay hidden," she admitted. "They will find me eventually. My mother, she will not stop until I am back in the palace." "Then we will be careful," Ethan replied. "We will watch, listen, and move only when it is safe. No one can find you if we stay smart and patient." She looked at him, her large alien eyes filled with worry. "You really think we can do it?" "A human and a princess hiding in the palace. It seems impossible." Ethan smiled slightly. "Humans survive impossible things all the time. Sometimes it is not about strength or weapons, but about thinking and staying calm. We can do it." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. She felt a small spark of hope for the first time since she had run. She took a small bite of the fruit Ethan offered. It was sweet, and it reminded her of her childhood before the pressure of the throne had taken everything from her. As she ate, Ethan spoke quietly, telling her about Earth, the planet he had come from, and the humans who lived there. He spoke of simple things, green fields, oceans, forests, and people working together to survive. Lyra listened, fascinated by stories of a world so different from her own. Humans were not as strong as Valkorans, he said, but they had resilience, creativity, and a sense of hope that even the strongest aliens sometimes lacked. "Humans sound strange," Lyra said, smiling faintly. "So small and yet so brave. I do not understand how they survive without wings or strength like ours." "It is not always strength that matters," Ethan replied. "It is courage, patience, and loyalty. Sometimes the quietest person is the strongest of all." Lyra thought about that. She had grown up in fear of her mother's wrath, always trying to be strong, but always feeling small inside. Now, sitting beside a human who cared for her safety, she realized that strength could be different from what her people believed. It could be gentle, patient, and kind. The day passed slowly. Ethan kept watch near the broken windows, listening for the patrols and the guards moving through the palace corridors. He taught Lyra how to listen for footsteps, how to notice shadows, and how to move quietly if they needed to escape. She learned quickly, her natural curiosity helping her remember every detail. By the afternoon, she was able to move from one side of the dome to another without making a sound. Ethan watched proudly, seeing her confidence grow. "You are learning fast," he said. "Soon no one will know you are here." Lyra blushed, a small smile appearing on her lips. "Thank you," she said softly. I never thought I could hide and not be afraid at the same time." Ethan nodded. "Fear is natural, but it does not have to control you. The more you practice, the stronger you become." As evening approached, Lyra grew restless. She stood near the broken glass roof, looking at the fading light. "I cannot stay here forever," she said. "My mother will send hunters soon, and I cannot keep hiding like this." "What if they find us?" "Then we will move," Ethan said calmly. "We have time, but we must be careful. We cannot rush or panic. Patience is our weapon." Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and trust. "You are not afraid of my mother?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "Fear does not help. We act with caution and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is all that matters." The two of them spent the night in silence, the hum of the energy conduit keeping them warm. Lyra curled up under the jacket, feeling safe for the first time in weeks. Ethan remained alert, listening for the faintest sound of approaching patrols. The quiet bond between them grew, stronger than words. Over the next several days, Lyra learned to move through the palace without being seen. Ethan showed her hidden corridors, unused maintenance shafts, and places where the patrols rarely looked. She practiced climbing, hiding, and even observing the palace from above through small windows and vents. Each day, she grew stronger, more confident, and less afraid. One day, as they rested in the garden dome, Lyra spoke of her mother. "My mother is fierce," she said softly. "She expects perfection. She is strong, but sometimes I wonder if she is lonely too. She has no one to trust but herself." Ethan listened, nodding. "Perhaps she is like all rulers, carrying too much weight, but you do not have to be like her. You can choose your own strength." Lyra looked at him, considering his words. "I want to be strong like that," she said, "but also kind and not alone. I want to protect those who cannot protect themselves like you do." Ethan felt a quiet pride. The princess was learning what true strength meant. It was not about fear or control, but about courage, patience, and loyalty. He knew that when the palace finally discovered her, she would face the empire differently than anyone expected. As days passed, the tension grew. Palace patrols were everywhere, and rumors of the missing princess spread through the city. The queen's anger was growing. She demanded results, and alien soldiers scoured every corner of the palace. Yet Ethan and Lyra remained unseen, moving quietly through forgotten passages and abandoned rooms. One evening, while resting in a high corridor overlooking the central courtyard, Lyra asked a question she had been thinking about. "Why do humans follow orders so differently from aliens? You do not act out of fear or pride, but out of loyalty." "Loyalty is stronger than fear," Ethan replied. "Fear can make someone powerful for a moment, but loyalty lasts. Loyalty is a choice, not an instinct. It is what makes humans strong in ways aliens cannot always understand." Lyra thought about that, watching the soldiers below. They were strong, armored, and fierce, yet they lacked the calm confidence that Ethan had. Humans were different. They were smaller, weaker in some ways, but their strength came from within, from understanding and courage. She realized she wanted to learn that kind of strength for herself. That night, as they returned to the garden dome, Lyra made a quiet promise. She would not run forever. She would learn, grow, and prepare herself to face the palace. But she would do it on her terms, with Ethan's guidance and support. Together, they were stronger than either could be alone. The palace continued its search, unaware that the princess they sought so desperately was already learning the lessons that would change her life, and the empire, forever. Ethan and Lyra, human and princess, hidden and patient, prepared for the days ahead. And in the quiet of the garden dome, with the broken glass sparkling in the light of Valcora's sun, a bond grew, one that would be tested, challenged, and celebrated, but could never be broken. The palace was tense. Alarms had been raised, and the corridors were crowded with guards searching for the missing princess. Queen Zareth's anger echoed through the halls like thunder. She was furious that her daughter had vanished and furious that no one could find her. Alien soldiers moved quickly, shouting orders and scanning every room. Nothing seemed to be safe from their attention, and yet the princess remained unseen. Inside the old garden dome, Ethan and Lyra felt the pressure of the search more than ever. The quiet that had protected them for days now seemed fragile, as if it could shatter at any moment. Lyra stayed close to Ethan, her eyes constantly moving, watching for shadows or sudden sounds. She had grown more skilled at hiding, but the weight of fear never fully left her. "They are getting closer," Ethan whispered, pressing a hand to her shoulder. "I heard patrols moving in the lower halls. We might need to move soon." Lyra nodded, gripping the large jacket around her. "I am ready," she said quietly, though her voice trembled. "I do not want to be caught. What happens if they find us?" "Then we stay calm," Ethan replied. "Panic will not help. We think, we move, and we survive together." For the first time since her disappearance, Lyra saw how important it was to trust someone else. She had never had that kind of trust before. The palace had always been a place of rules, fear, and distance. Now, sitting beside a human who cared only for her safety, she felt a spark of hope. That afternoon, Ethan led Lyra through hidden passages that few knew existed. They moved quietly along maintenance corridors, past storage rooms and abandoned chambers. Every corner was a potential danger, but Ethan's calmness reassured Lyra. She began to notice small things: the hum of the palace energy conduits, the patterns of guard patrols, the shadows that could hide them. "Look," Ethan said, pointing to a small vent near the ceiling. "We can climb through here. It will take us to the east wing, where patrols are lighter. Stay low and follow my movements." Lyra nodded and carefully climbed after him. Her heart raced, but she trusted Ethan completely. The vent led to an unused study, dusty with old papers and faint smells of ink and flowers. It was a quiet place, far from the watchful eyes of the palace guards. Lyra sank to the floor, breathing heavily, and Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her back. "You are doing well," he said. "I know it is scary, but you are learning faster than anyone could expect." I want to be brave," Lyra whispered, "but it is hard. My mother, she is so strong, and I feel so small." "Bravery is not about size or strength," Ethan said. "It is about standing even when you are afraid. It is about protecting those you care about. You are already brave, Lyra." She looked at him, feeling a warmth she had never known before. For the first time, she felt that she could be more than a scared princess. She could be someone who chose her own path, someone who learned strength in a way that her people would never understand. As night fell, a faint noise reached them from the hallways. Ethan froze, listening carefully. Lyra crouched behind a desk, her eyes wide. Footsteps echoed in the empty corridors, louder with every step. Ethan motioned for her to stay still. A group of palace guards passed nearby, speaking in low tones, unaware of the hidden passage where they hid. "They are getting more organized," Ethan said quietly after the guards moved on. "The queen is not leaving any corner unchecked. Soon she might order more extreme measures." Lyra shivered. She knew her mother's reputation, had seen stories of the punishments given to those who failed her. Yet she also knew that Ethan would not abandon her. That gave her courage, and she felt a small fire in her chest. She would survive, and she would learn how to face the queen. Over the next few days, they continued moving through hidden passages. Ethan taught Lyra how to listen for footsteps, how to notice the smallest change in shadows, and how to remain calm under pressure. She practiced climbing, hiding, and moving silently. Each day she grew stronger, more confident, and less afraid. One evening, while resting in a quiet storage room, Lyra spoke softly. "Ethan, do you think my mother will forgive me if she finds me?" "I cannot say," Ethan replied. "She is fierce and expects loyalty, but you have the right to live and choose your own path. That is something even she may have to respect." Lyra nodded, thinking about the lessons she had learned from Ethan. Humans were different. They did not rely on fear to control others. They relied on trust, patience, and courage. It was a strength unlike anything she had known in her empire. The tension in the palace continued to grow. Rumors of the missing princess reached every corner, and alien nobles began questioning the queen's control. Some suggested extreme measures, but Zareth's fury kept them silent. She would find her daughter no matter what. One day, as Ethan and Lyra moved through a high corridor overlooking the main hall, Lyra froze. Below, she saw soldiers moving with unusual coordination. They had discovered hints of the princess's presence, discarded items, traces of movement, and faint energy readings. The palace was closing in. "They are getting closer," Ethan whispered, pressing a hand to her back. "We need to be careful. If they see even a shadow, it could be dangerous." Lyra nodded, her heart racing. She had never felt such fear, but she also felt determination. She would not run forever. She would learn how to face the palace and her mother, but for now, survival was the priority. As night fell, they returned to the garden dome. The broken glass reflected the dim light from the energy conduits, casting patterns on the walls. Lyra curled up under the jacket, exhausted but awake. Ethan kept watch, listening for approaching patrols. The bond between them had grown stronger. Trust, respect, and quiet courage connected them in ways words could not describe. The next morning, the palace sent a special team of elite hunters to search the dome. They were skilled, experienced, and ruthless. Ethan knew they had to move quickly. He led Lyra through hidden corridors, avoiding patrols and evading detection. The chase was tense, their every movement measured and precise. Lyra's heart pounded, but she stayed calm under Ethan's guidance. "Remember what I taught you," Ethan whispered. "Stay quiet, watch the shadows, and trust your instincts. We can get through this." They moved through narrow passages and abandoned rooms, finally finding a small chamber that had been unused for decades. It was dusty and quiet, with faint light coming from a crack in the ceiling. Ethan motioned for Lyra to stay low. They waited, listening as the elite hunters passed nearby. The sound of their boots faded and the air seemed to lighten. "We made it," Lyra whispered, relief flooding her voice. "For now," Ethan nodded. "For now, but we must remain careful. The palace will not stop. The queen will not stop. We need a plan for what comes next." Lyra looked at him, determination in her eyes. "I will not hide forever. I want to be strong. I want to face them, but on my terms." Ethan smiled. "Then we will prepare, we will train, we will watch, and we will survive together." As the sun set on Valcora, the Empire continued its search, unaware that the princess was learning lessons in courage and trust that would change everything. Ethan and Lyra, human and alien, hidden and patient, were growing stronger together. The Empire believed it held the upper hand, but the quiet bond between them was a force no one could see. And in the quiet of the abandoned chamber, with the faint hum of energy conduits and the soft glow of the setting sun, Lyra realized something important. True strength was not in fear, obedience, or power. It was in patience, loyalty, and courage. And with Ethan at her side, she was ready to discover just how strong she could be. The palace may have believed it was in control, but the story was only beginning. The princess and the human guard had survived the first wave of danger, but greater challenges were coming, and the choices they made would shape the empire in ways no one expected. The palace was in chaos. Alarms rang through every corridor, lights flashed red, and alien soldiers moved quickly, shouting orders. Queen Zaretha's fury had reached its peak. She demanded that every corner be searched, every hidden passage uncovered, and every guard questioned. The Empire would not rest until her daughter, Princess Lyra, was returned. Inside the abandoned chamber, Ethan and Lyra felt the weight of the Empire pressing in. For days, they had moved quietly through hidden corridors, evading patrols, learning the patterns of the palace, and growing stronger together. Now it seemed that their luck was running out. Faint sounds of approaching footsteps echoed through the halls, louder than usual. Ethan pressed a hand to Lyra's back, signaling her to stay low and remain silent. "They are close," he whispered. "We must stay calm and follow the plan. Remember everything I taught you." Lyra nodded, gripping the jacket tightly around her shoulders. Fear churned in her stomach, but she also felt determination. She had learned patience, courage, and trust, and now she would need all of it. The footsteps grew louder. Alien voices called out, demanding that the princess reveal herself. Ethan peeked through a crack in the wall and saw a group of elite palace hunters approaching, their weapons raised. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were skilled, trained to detect even the smallest sign of life. "We need to move," Ethan said quietly. "Follow me and stay close. Do not make a sound." They slipped through a narrow vent that led to the upper halls. Lyra followed carefully, her small hands gripping the edges. She felt the fear of being caught, but also a strange sense of excitement. She was no longer just hiding. She was learning to act to survive. The hunters paused below, inspecting the chamber they had just left. One of them bent down, noticing a faint trace of energy from the missing princess. Ethan and Lyra held their breath as the hunter's scanner passed over the spot where they had been. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then, without discovering them, the hunters moved on, frustrated but unaware. "We were lucky," Ethan whispered. "But luck alone will not keep us safe. We must plan carefully." Lyra nodded, her mind racing. "What if they do not leave? What if the queen orders the entire palace to be sealed?" "Then we face it together," Ethan said. "We have learned how to hide, how to survive, and how to stay calm. We can face whatever comes next." That evening, Lyra sat beside Ethan in the quiet of a small, unused study. The soft glow of the palace lights filtered through cracked windows, casting gentle patterns on the floor. She looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. "Ethan," she said softly, "do you think my mother will be angry at me forever? She is powerful, and I am afraid." "Anger does not last forever," Ethan said. "Your mother may be furious now, but she will see that you survived, that you learned, and that you are growing stronger. It may take time, but she will respect that, and you have to respect yourself first." Lyra nodded slowly. She realized that her mother's anger was not just fear of losing control, but also fear that her daughter would never be ready for the Empire. Now, for the first time, she felt ready, not to face the Empire perfectly, but to face it as herself with courage and trust. The next day, Ethan led Lyra to a vantage point overlooking the main courtyard. Below, soldiers moved with urgency, searching every hall, every corridor, and every room. The queen herself had appeared, her fierce presence radiating authority. Alien nobles whispered nervously as she passed, and the patrols followed her orders without question. "They are intensifying the search," Ethan said quietly. "We cannot stay here for long. We need a new plan." Lyra studied her mother from above. She was powerful, commanding, and terrifying, yet she also saw something else, a flash of doubt, a trace of worry. The queen was confident, but she did not know where Lyra was, and that uncertainty unsettled her. Lyra realized that even the fiercest rulers could be challenged, not with weapons alone, but with cleverness, courage, and patience. "I want to face her," Lyra said softly, "but I do not want to fight. I want her to see me differently." Ethan nodded. "Then we prepare. We show her that strength is more than power, that loyalty and courage can be shown without fear, and when the time comes, you will speak for yourself." As night fell, they returned to the old garden dome. It was their safe place, where Lyra could rest and Ethan could watch over her. But tonight, the calm would not last. The hum of the palace energy conduits was interrupted by a sudden alarm. A special patrol had discovered signs of Lyra's presence in a nearby corridor. "We have to go," Ethan said, urgency in his voice. "They are coming now." They moved quickly, slipping through maintenance shafts and hidden passages. Lyra's heart pounded, but she remembered everything Ethan had taught her. She moved quietly, listening for footsteps, watching shadows, and trusting Ethan's guidance. They reached a small chamber that had been sealed for decades. It was dusty, dark, and filled with the smell of old books. Ethan checked the corridor before signaling Lyra inside. They were safe for the moment, but the Empire was closing in. "We cannot hide forever," Lyra said, her voice trembling slightly. "They will find us eventually." "Then we prepare," Ethan said firmly. "We will not run, we will stand when the time comes. But for now, we survive and we grow stronger." Hours passed, and the palace continued its search. Lyra and Ethan remained hidden, learning to move silently, communicate without words, and anticipate danger before it arrived. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing moment. Trust, respect, and courage connected them in ways that neither fully understood yet. Finally, the moment came. The elite hunters discovered the hidden chamber. Alarms blared and the queen's voice echoed through the halls. "Bring my daughter to me," she commanded. Soldiers swarmed the area, scanning every corner. Ethan positioned himself in front of Lyra, ready to defend her if necessary. "Stay calm," he whispered. "Remember your training, trust yourself, and trust me." Lyra nodded, feeling fear and determination at the same time. The hunters entered the chamber. Their eyes widened as they saw Ethan and the princess standing together. One raised a weapon, but Ethan's calm presence and quick thinking allowed him to defuse the situation without violence. He stepped forward, showing that Lyra was unharmed, and spoke clearly. "She is safe. She is not hiding to disobey, but to learn, to grow, and to survive." The hunters hesitated, unsure how to act. They were trained to capture, but not to reason with humans. Lyra stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. I am here. I have learned, I have grown, and I will face my mother. I am not afraid. The queen arrived moments later, her presence filling the chamber with authority. She stopped, staring at her daughter and the human guard. Alien soldiers held their breath. The queen's eyes blazed with anger, but Lyra did not flinch. Mother, Lyra said, I am ready to speak for myself. Ethan has helped me survive, but also helped me learn courage and strength. I am not the same princess you feared would fail. Zaretha's anger did not fade, but something in her expression softened, a trace of respect, of doubt, of curiosity. The court waited, unsure of what would happen next. Ethan, the queen said finally, her voice firm but controlled, you have guarded my daughter well. But do you understand the consequences of your actions? Yes, Ethan replied calmly. I followed my orders and I protected her. I did not seek reward or power. I acted out of loyalty and courage. The queen studied him, then looked at Lyra. The chamber was silent, tension thick. Finally, after a long moment, she spoke. Princess Lyra, you will not be punished for fleeing, but you must learn the ways of the Empire. You will do so with guidance, but also with freedom to choose. And you, human, will remain here as her guard under my watch. Ethan nodded, accepting the order without complaint. Lyra felt a mixture of relief and pride. She had faced the queen, survived, and learned lessons that no one else could teach her. Together, they had proven that courage and loyalty could change even the fiercest hearts. As they left the chamber, Lyra turned to Ethan. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. I could not have done this without you. We did it together, Ethan replied. And the lessons we learned will help both of us in the days ahead. And so, the Empire learned that human courage and patience could stand against fear, and that even a fierce queen could be challenged by loyalty, trust, and quiet strength. The palace would never be the same again, and the bond between a human guard and an alien princess would shape the future in ways no one could yet imagine. The palace was quieter now. The alarms had stopped, the guards had returned to their normal routines, and Queen Zaretha's fury had subsided, replaced by a careful watchfulness. The Empire was still strong, but something had changed. The events of the past days, the princess fleeing, the human guard protecting her, and the lessons learned in the hidden corridors, had left a mark on everyone. Princess Lyra sat in the garden dome, now partially restored, the broken glass repaired and small plants beginning to bloom again. She wore simple clothing, free from the weight of her royal attire, and she moved with a confidence that had not been there before. Ethan sat beside her, cleaning his simple armor, but his eyes never left her. Their bond had grown strong over the weeks of hiding, training, and survival. It was a bond of trust, courage, and shared experience. I cannot believe how much I have learned, Lyra said softly. She looked around the garden dome, the familiar hum of the energy conduits mixing with the gentle rustle of leaves. I used to be so afraid of everything. The palace, my mother, the Empire. I thought I could never be ready. You were ready all along, Ethan said quietly. You just had to find the courage to see it. You learned patience, trust, and how to face fear without running. That is more than many ever learn. Lyra smiled faintly. She remembered the first day she had curled up beside the warm energy conduit, terrified and unsure. Now she stood tall, proud of the lessons she had learned and the person she was becoming. She had faced the Empire, survived the hunts, and even spoken to her mother with courage. She had found her strength in ways she had never imagined. The next morning, Lyra and Ethan were called to the royal hall. The court was quiet, alien nobles whispering and glancing at each other nervously. Queen Zarethi sat on her throne, her presence commanding the room, but her eyes were softer than before. She studied her daughter carefully, then looked at Ethan. Princess Lyra, the queen said, her voice firm but not angry, you have faced your fears, you have shown courage and patience, and you have survived where many would have failed. I see that you are learning to be strong, not just in power, but in heart and mind. Lyra bowed slightly, her voice steady. Thank you, Mother. I have learned much, and I will continue to learn. I am ready to serve the Empire, but also to choose my own path. The Queen's gaze shifted to Ethan. And you, human, you have proven yourself beyond what I expected. You have guarded my daughter with loyalty, courage, and wisdom. Your actions have changed how I see your kind. Ethan nodded quietly, feeling a mixture of respect and relief. He had followed his instincts, his training, and his heart, and it had all led to this moment. The Queen's approval, though tempered by caution, meant that the Empire recognized his strength in ways that numbers or weapons never could. You will remain here as her guard, the queen continued. Not only to protect her, but also to teach her the lessons you have already shown. She will learn more from you than from fear or orders alone. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She had never expected the queen to allow Ethan to stay, yet here he was, officially recognized as her protector and teacher. She looked at him, and he gave her a small nod, acknowledging the unspoken bond between them. Over the next weeks, Lyra trained alongside Ethan. She practiced moving through the palace quietly, observing patrols and learning strategies that combined Valkoran's strength with human patience and creativity. Each day, she grew more confident. The fear that had once dominated her life was replaced by determination. She was learning to balance courage with wisdom, power with kindness. One afternoon, Lyra and Ethan walked through the restored garden dome. Flowers bloomed where broken glass had been, and sunlight filtered through the ceiling. Lyra paused, looking at the beauty around her. I never imagined this place could feel safe, she said softly. Not when it was abandoned, broken, and full of fear, but now it feels like home in a way. Home is what you make it, Ethan replied. It is where you feel safe, where you can grow, and where trust exists. This is your home now, princess, but it is also your empire. You choose how to face it. Lyra smiled, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. The lessons she had learned in fear, hiding, and survival had shaped her into someone capable of leading, protecting, and choosing her own path. She no longer needed to fear her mother's anger or the Empire's expectations. She had found strength within herself and through her bond with Ethan. As the days passed, the palace began to accept the new balance. The queen allowed Lyra more freedom in her training and decisions, seeing the growth and maturity her daughter had gained. Alien nobles began to respect the human guard, recognizing that strength came in many forms. The Empire itself felt a subtle shift. Patience, loyalty, and courage were now valued alongside power and fear. One evening, Lyra and Ethan sat in the garden dome, watching the sun set over Valkora. The light reflected off the repaired glass, creating patterns that danced on the walls. Lyra leaned slightly against Ethan, feeling the comfort of his presence. I could not have done any of this without you, she said softly. You taught me courage, patience, and trust. You showed me that strength is not only about power, but about heart. Ethan smiled, a gentle warmth in his eyes. We did it together, he said. And the lessons we learned will stay with you forever. The Empire may respect strength, but true courage comes from within and from the bonds we make. Lyra nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and understanding. She realized that she had grown not just as a princess, but as a person. She had faced fear, survived challenges, and learned lessons that no one else could teach. And through it all, she had a friend, a guide, and a protector by her side. The palace outside continued its routines, unaware that the events of the past weeks had changed everything. The Empire had been reminded that strength was not always visible, that courage could be quiet, and that loyalty and trust could be more powerful than weapons. Princess Lyra, with Ethan at her side, was ready to lead in a new way, strong, wise, and compassionate. As night fell, Lyra and Ethan returned to the garden dome one last time for the day. They walked among the blooming plants, the soft hum of the energy conduits blending with the gentle breeze. Lyra paused, looking at Ethan with a small smile. We made it, she said quietly. We survived and we learned. Now I feel ready for whatever comes next. And I will be here, Ethan replied. Not just as your guard, but as someone you can trust, someone who believes in you. Together we can face anything. Lyra felt a warmth in her heart, a combination of gratitude, trust, and courage. She realized that true strength came from within, but it was strengthened by those who stood beside you. She had survived fear, learned patience, and discovered the power of loyalty and trust. In the quiet of the garden dome, with the stars beginning to shine above the palace, Lyra knew that her life had changed forever. She was no longer just a princess under pressure. She was a leader, a learner, and a human ally by her side who had taught her what courage truly meant. And so the Empire learned a lesson it would never forget. True strength is not measured by fear or power alone, but by courage, patience, loyalty, and the bonds we build along the way. Princess Lyra, with Ethan standing beside her, was ready to face the future, stronger and wiser than ever. The palace had survived the turmoil, the queen had respected her daughter's growth, and a human had proven that courage and patience could match the fiercest power of the Empire. Together, Lyra and Ethan had not only survived, they had changed the Empire forever, and their bond would remain unbroken, a quiet strength that could endure anything the galaxy would throw at them. And in the stillness of the night, in the garden dome filled with the soft glow of lights and the fragrance of flowers, Lyra whispered quietly to herself, "I am ready," knowing that with courage, trust, and friendship, anything was possible.